Hi, library friends. Welcome to the Red Bank Public Library. This is our program called Family Story Times on Race and Diversity. And I'm Sira Williams, a children's librarian, and I'm really glad you're here because I think what we've found out over the past year is that we need to be having these conversations on a continuing basis because almost every day there's something in the news about race, social justice, and equality, and we just can't ignore it. And so lately it's been the trial and rehashing of the murder of George Floyd, and that's been very traumatizing to re-examine. But also we've been seeing so many incidents of horrible, vicious attacks against Asian Americans. And so that's the community that we're going to talk about today. I know that Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month is in May, but we don't want to push off these discussions when the opportunity arises. We have to take advantage of it and do it. And so these conversations are for you, young families, because I really feel that children are our biggest hope for the future. We just have to break these cycles of hate across all races. And so these conversations are not just for white families. They're for Black families, Latinx families, Native American families, Asian families, no matter what culture you come from or what race you are. We all need to be talking about our kids because children are not born with hate in their heart. They are not. And so it's up to us as their family and as their community members and the places where they live and learn and grow. We need to be instilling in them, for the benefit of our future, values of tolerance and justice and peace and kindness. And in order to do that, we have to talk. We have to talk about these issues. We have to share our experiences with them. We have to listen to our children about experiences that they've had and also expose ourselves to other people to learn. And then we have to get involved. And so one thing that happens when we talk to kids is that they want to know why. Why? Why do these things keep happening? Why do we have to talk about them? And how come it hasn't been fixed yet? And so it's very complicated. It's very complicated. There's a lot of issues that intertwine. But I have an illustration that'll give us a good way to think about it. So this colorful ball of yarn is meant to represent people of color. That makes sense, right? And so what we know is that throughout the history of this country, people of color have been caught and tangled up in a web of racism and discrimination and inequality and injustice and oppression. And we've seen that, like I said, throughout history in the treatment of Native Americans, in the enslavement of Black people, in the treatment of Chinese immigrants who built our railroad system, in the internment of Japanese American citizens during World War II, in the treatment of immigrants today from Central and South America. Do you see how this is layering and layering upon each other and mixing and jumbling into a big tangled mess? And it's going to take a long time to unravel all these issues, right? But we can do it. We can do it, and we do it. Every time we speak up, every time we speak out, when we help somebody who's being treated unfairly or being hurt, we're making a difference. When we march and protest and vote, when we have these conversations with our family and our friends, we're making progress. Now, there's times when we're going to hit a snag or a knot, And they're going to be difficult times, but we have to keep working and push through them so that we can continue to make progress. And that gives us hope in knowing that we untangled this much, but we still have this much more to go. And so we need everybody's help. That's what we're doing, and that's what we're talking about. Let me get out of this big tangled mess, because today I want to do something special with you. I think that was a good illustration though, don't you? It takes a long time to undo everything that's been done. Those things have generational effects, and we got to work on it together. But this is a story that we're going to read today. It's called Eyes That Kiss in the Corners by Joanna Ho and illustrated by Dung Ho. And this is going to be a window book for us. That's because it's a story told from the perspective of Asian Americans. So not only is it okay for me as a Black person, or you, no matter what race you are, to read a story like this, but it's a good thing. We want to do that. We want to read as many stories as we can about different kinds of people, because that's how we discover the things that we have in common and how we can relate to each other. So that's important. But also, if you are Asian American, how great is it to see yourself in the pages of a book? It's actually amazing. And it's like that for all people of color, because when you're able to read or about somebody that's coming from your perspective, that lifts you up. It helps you to feel seen and important, and it builds your self-esteem. So after I read the story, I'm going to introduce you to one of my friends, a young Asian American who grew up in this community, and she's going to tell us about some of her experiences when she was young, and maybe she has a little bit of advice for you kids too. But let's start by reading Eyes That Kiss in the Corners. And as always, I want you to pay attention to the illustrations because they tell a story too, right? Like this first page doesn't have any words for the story yet, but we can see that she's getting ready to go to school. She's got her backpack on. She's checking herself in the mirror and she's heading out that door. Some people have eyes like sapphire lagoons, with lashes like lace trim on ball gowns, sweeping their cheeks as they twirl. Big eyes and long lashes. Not me. I have eyes that kiss in the corners and glow like warm tea. My eyes are just like Mama's. Mama's eyes that kiss in the corners and glow like warm tea crinkle into crescent moons when she comes home from work. She scoops me up in her arms, eyes sparkling like starlight, and tickles me until we laugh ourselves onto the floor. When Mama tucks me in at night, her eyes tell me that I'm a miracle. In those moments when she's all mine, flecks of dancing gold tell me I'm hers too. My mama is my sun and sky, and in her eyes are just like Amma's. It's her grandmother. Amma's eyes that kiss in the corners and glow like warm tea don't work like they used to, but she sees all the way into my heart and can even read my mind. Her eyes are filled with so many stories. I can fall inside them and swim until time stops. I see Guan Yin with the Monkey King sitting on a lotus, serene, baubles of lychee on trees, and mountains that reach for the sea. My Amma never ages, and her eyes are just like Maymay's. Maymay's eyes that kiss in the corners and glow like warm tea blink against the window until I come home from school. They disappear beneath her two-toothed smile when I walk in the door. Isn't she so cute? She toddles after me, gazing up at me like I'm her best present. I hope she looks at me like that forever. Because when she looks at me in that Maymay way, I feel like I can fly. Maymay's eyes that kiss in the corners and glow like warm tea are just like mine. My eyes crinkle into crescent moons and sparkle like the stars. Gold flecks dance and twirl while stories whirl in their oolong pools, carrying tales of the past and hope for the future. Cool dragons. My eyes find mountains that rise ahead and look up when others shut down. My lashes curve like the swords of warriors, and through them, I see kingdoms in the clouds. My eyes that kiss in the corners and glow like warm tea are a revolution. They are Mama and Amma and Maymay. They are me. And they are beautiful. That's the end. I think that's a really special book. And we just got it. We're going to have it at the library for you to check out if you want to see it at home. But I saw an interview with this author, Joanna Ho, and she said that this is a story about pride in who you are and what makes you who you are on the inside and the outside. So it's not just about loving what you look like on the outside, but knowing who you are on the inside from your family and your heritage and your culture. And when you learn about those things as you grow up and you are proud of who you are, then you can push back on some of the stereotypes that are out there in society. And maybe you can talk about some of those stereotypes in your conversations and why they're not helpful. But I want to introduce you to my friend Maya, who grew up in this town, and see what she has to say about it. Hi, Maya.
Hi, Miss Sira.
Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you're here because I want the kids to meet you. I know you because you grew up here in our little town with my girls. And I just wanted to have a little conversation with a young Asian American to find out how you're doing these days and what it was like for you growing up in our neck of the woods. So can you tell me about the level of diversity that you had at in your elementary and upper education?
Yeah, I the first 9 years of my education were strangely diverse because my class was really well mixed. We had a lot of Latino kids and Black kids and white kids, but I didn't realize until much later that there were only two Asians, me and one other girl. And then when I went to high school, the high school I went to was majority white and Asian, and it kind of hit me in the face that I was not surrounded by people with similar backgrounds to mine in those first few years. But then I also missed having that mix of cultures around me. And I just wish that I had been able to have those two things meld together where, both extra diverse, but also having my own cultures surround me at the same time.
It sounds though really like you're actually pretty fortunate compared to a lot of schools and kids to have those levels of diversity at all.
I'm just so glad that I got, both experiences, because
Yeah.
otherwise I would have only had one point of view the
Yeah.
entire time.
Were there times when you felt uncomfortable in those situations, or it sounds like it was so diverse that maybe everything was cool?
I mean, when I was younger, a big thing for me was food. My parents would pack me a lunchbox, and sometimes we would have things in there that weren't the norm for some other kids. And most of the time, it was just questions and curiosity. But some children can be very judgmental when they see things that are unknown to them. Otherwise, most of the time, it was never intentional discomfort. Just people would ask me questions that they expected an Asian to know that I may not be able to answer. And it just made me question, like, am I not Asian enough? But that's just the stereotype.
Is there a way that so kids are kids, and they're still the same way as they were when you were in elementary school or in middle school. Is there a better way if they're curious, or if they're in a diverse group and they do have questions?
Just ask the question. I think a lot of kids are good about just asking the questions they have, but some will judge before they even try it, or they think 2 seconds about it. I think it's really important to hold your judgment until you've asked your questions, because if there's still things you don't know, how can you really be a judge of something?
Good answer. Good answer. What other stereotypes do you think you've had to face?
There's, the Asians are naturally smart, and that I didn't have to study, or that we ate cats, which is just ridiculous. There is a lot of one time I was asked what classical music I listened to, and there's just a lot of strange stereotypes that people will put on you and then be shocked when you don't fit them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That can be hard, I'm sure. I know. Because all people of color come across those types of things, and it is hard to deal with, especially when you're a young person.
Yeah.
How have your feelings changed about your identity as you've grown and matured?
When I was really little, I didn't fully understand what it meant to be a certain race. But then for a while, I was super worried about like making sure that I could fit the stereotypes that people were putting on me, or that I understood, oh, this is your race, so I know that these are the stereotypes around your people. But as I grew older, I realized that thinking was so backwards, because at the end of the day, everyone is an individual. And just because there may be, some confirmation bias where I go, oh, I noticed this pattern because someone told me it exists. At the end of the day, that doesn't represent a person.
Yeah.
It's better to approach them as
individuals. Makes me
individuals.
sad to think that you felt that you had to do that. Everybody should just try. It's hard. It's hard when you're young to figure out who you are and to assert yourself. But I know that happens as you grow and mature. So is there any advice that you have to young people out there as
Just
they navigate
approach people as individuals, and you are your own individual. Don't let stereotypes and other people's ideas of a group affect your ability to recognize someone for who they are, and just do your best to surround yourself with as many different people as you can. Learn more about the world, learn more about your peers, because otherwise that's what makes your life rich.
I think that's great advice. And I think we'll leave it at that. So thank you. Thank you so much.
You,
Take good care of yourself, okay? It's
you
good to see you.
too. Good seeing you too.
So I think that was a good conversation with Maya. Do you think you learned anything from her today? I hope so. I really think that she was fortunate to grow up in such a diverse situation. But have you ever thought about your own situation, about your classroom, your friend group, your sports teams, or even the place that you work if you're a grown-up? How diverse are they? Maybe that's something that you can think about and talk about. But still, Maya shared with us some times when people made her feel othered because she was different. Now, we know that being different is cool. Being different was what makes us special. But we want to celebrate our differences and not make people feel bad about them. And so even in those little moments, they seem like little moments, like she talked about kids making fun of her lunch. Even in a situation like that, because you know when somebody's teasing you or making fun of you, sometimes it's hard to find the words or the courage to stand up for yourself. And if somebody else can come along and be a friend or an ally or a helper and say, hey, don't make fun of her lunch. We've never even tried it. Maybe let's ask her what it is. Just by doing that, you've done 3 things. You've shown the person who's being made fun of that you have their back and that they have your support. And that means so much. Number 2, you're going to get a chance to learn something. And you might taste something delicious. And number 3, you're going to set yourself apart as a leader. And people are going to start to look up to you because you already have your mind set on how you're going to act and on doing the right thing when situations arise. And that is amazing. And so just by doing these little things in these little moments, we can make a difference towards unraveling that big knot of a situation that we're in these days. And I'm going to leave you with a quote by Howard Zinn, who was a social activist, and he said this: small acts multiplied by millions of people can transform the world. So think about that, because I'm going to say it one more time. Small acts multiplied by 1 million people can transform the world. That's what we want to do. I'm going to leave you with some peace and love. Think about that too. Take some and pass it on. And stay well. Take good care of yourselves. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for coming to this family story time on race and diversity. Bye, friends.